Tomorrow I'm going to visit Jamie, and I've made a few videos already about some things that I'm going to bring to her for her live. And it's been a really long time, even though we live right next to each other, that I've hung out with Jamie. So I'm going to do it big, and I'm going to bring her all the things. Today I'm going to start one of my projects that I'm going to be bringing her tomorrow. I have to finish it tomorrow before I see her. And that is going to be a nice crusty loaf of bread. So I'm going to start it today, and it's going to have to rise for about 18 to 24 hours. And then tomorrow I'll bake it before I go see her. So today what we're going to start is just basically the dough base. You're going to need some active dry yeast. I have this brand. You can use, and I have several other brands too. I'll show you what other kind of brands I have. Where did I put them? Oh. This is a really popular brand as well. This is instant yeast, instant rapid rise yeast. So if you bake a lot, you may want to buy this jar instead of the little packets. If you do buy this jar, you can just stick it, after you open it, stick it straight in the refrigerator, and it'll keep longer than on the shelf. So once it hits the air, it'll start to deteriorate. So just make sure that if you do have the jar, you put it in the fridge. These little packets are nice because they're individually sealed and like little single serve, so you don't have to worry about refrigerating these. Okay, so today we're gonna do like an artisan type bread in the Dutch oven. We'll bake it tomorrow, but we're gonna start the dough today. And what we're gonna need is all-purpose flour, salt, and yeast, and warm water. That's it. Flour, salt, yeast, warm water. I'm going to be using some organic bread flour. You don't have to. I just find that this is the King Arthur flour. It says choosing the right protein content for your recipe makes your bread rise higher, your cakes moist, and your pizza crust chewier. So I guess that's what bread flour does for your bread, and I'm sure many other qualities, but so I'm going to use this, but you don't have to. And my recipe calls for 3 cups. So I'm going to sift my flour. You don't have to, if you don't have a sifter, you don't have to use it. Just spoon it kind of lightly into your measuring cup, because you don't want your flour to be hard and compact, because it would give it a different consistency as far as measurements go. So I want my flour light and airy in my recipe here. So I'm just going to lightly scoop out some, and I'm going to take my knife, and I'm just going to slide off the excess flour. Then I'm going to plop this 1 scoop of flour in my sifter. And if you watched my Christmas cookie video, Connor was using the sifter. He really enjoyed it. So you just pull the little handle, and it just comes right at the bottom. There's like a little, it almost looks like a fan inside when you pull the lever, and it kind of just puts it through a little strainer, a fine mesh strainer. That way your flour is nice and fluffy. See? Okay, and I'm going to do this 2 more times for 3 cups. Okay, we have our sifted 3 cups of flour here. I'm going to add in my salt. You can use table salt, but I'm going to be using this kosher salt. I just find that it's a little bit flakier, has a little bit of a larger grain. Again, you can use whatever salt you want. So I'm going to use 1.5 teaspoons of salt. right in the bowl with your flour. Okay, and then the next thing that we're gonna need is 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. So you're gonna take your packet. You got your active dry yeast. Now this one calls for 2 teaspoons, but this packet actually has 2 1/4 teaspoons yeast in it. So I'm gonna actually have a little bit left over. I need to measure it out to make sure that I get the right amount. Here's 1 teaspoon. 2 teaspoons. Actually, there's not much left in this packet, so 2 teaspoons yeast into the bowl with your salt and your flour. Okay, I have my flour, my salt, and my yeast in my bucket, my bowl. I'm gonna go ahead and mix this all together, and then we're gonna add in 1 1/2 cups warm water. Okay, I've got my warm water going. I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 1/2 cups. You do not want it boiling. And ideally you would want it about to be 105 degrees. And if you don't know what 105 degrees is, you can think of like a hot tub. Hot tub's normally around 104 degrees. So maybe like a hot tub type. If you've never been in a hot tub, then like a warm bath. You just don't want it so hot that it kills the yeast. Yeast likes warm water to bloom and to grow, but you don't want it so hot that it kills it off. All right, so now my 1 1/2 cups of water is in my flour mixture. I'm gonna go ahead and stir to combine it all. The thing I like about this bread is that it's a no-knead bread. So you're not gonna be kneading it forever. You don't need to punch it down and do all those things that you would with other traditional breads. Okay, so I've just been mixing to combine. Like I said, it's a no-knead bread. It's a little sticky, and kind of just forming a little bit of a ball with it, making sure everything's incorporated. There's no dry or clumpy spots so much, but looks like this. It's kind of shaggy. It's definitely wet and sticky. What I'm going to do is I'm going to now take this out, kind of shape it a little bit as best I can, and put it into a separate bowl. It's going to be oiled or greased with a little bit of olive oil so that it's easier for the dough to be plopped out tomorrow. Plopped out is a technical term. So I'm going to grease this bowl here real quick. Here's my stuff. If you find that your dough is a little bit too dry, like it's just not forming a ball while you incorporate everything together, you can add in a little bit of warm water at a time to make it to the consistency that you think that you need. Let me get this bowl and a little paper towel. And go ahead and oil the sides all the way up to the top, because you would be surprised at just how much this thing is going to rise overnight or in the next 18 to 24 hours. You can also proof this or have this rise in your refrigerator up to 3 days. So if you want to if you have a refrigerator you got space, this much space in your fridge, go for it. You can do that if you've got something coming up in a couple days and you want to plan for that. So I'm going to just try my best making a ball. Whew. Sticky, sticky, sticky. Plop this little guy down here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it with some saran wrap. And then I'm going to cover this bowl with a moist tea towel or a kitchen towel. What that's going to do is it's going to basically kind of hydrate this, make sure it doesn't dry out, but also give it a safe space to double or triple in size. So I'll show you how I do that next once I wash my hands. So guess what I need to add to my grocery list? Saran wrap, which I don't even like using saran wrap because I can't tear it for the life of me. I will go through half a roll just trying to get a piece off and without it sticking to each other, and so maybe I won't even buy it. I won't buy it. But what I do have is wax paper. So I'm just going to create basically a seal over this bread, and then I'm going to top it with a damp tea cloth or a kitchen towel, and that's going to help keep the wax paper down on top of it as well as keep moisture in. So I'm not very worried too much about it. So we're going to make it work. Get my towel wet. And then for the next 18 to 24 hours, you're going to want to put this in it doesn't have to be necessarily in a super warm place, but you're going to want to put it in a draft-free place. So if you don't plan on using your oven, you could put it inside your oven. Just don't preheat your oven and forget it's in there. Especially with the towel on, because that'll catch fire. So forget I said that. Put it on top of your oven, somewhere where you know it's not going to be getting cold air hitting it, in and out, in and out, in and out, when people open doors or whatever, or directly underneath like a AC vent. So anyway, this is good and wrung out. Now I'm just going to set it right on top. And then we're going to wait till tomorrow, and hopefully, if everything works out well, it's going to double in size. And then we're going to put it in a Dutch oven at 450 degrees for 30 minutes with the lid on. And then we're going to take the lid off for the last 15 minutes so that the top can get all brown and crispy and crunchy, and the inside's going to be all nice and warm, and I can already smell it and taste it. So anyway, catch you tomorrow. Okay, it is day 2 or the second day that I've let my bread rise in the kitchen, and we are probably probably about 24 hours in now on letting it rise. Like I said, you could let it rise 18 to 24 hours. That's ideal. If you think that if it looks like it's going to bake, or if it's ready or matches what I'm going to show you earlier, depending on your temperature, climate, could be ready to bake earlier. That's just where I gauge it at to go ahead and start baking it. So let me show you what it looks like. Grabbed it straight from the top of my oven. Oh yeah. Wow. So it's got some tiny little air bubbles. It smells yeasty, kind of smells like bread. Looks good. It's pretty moist on top still. We've had my little wax paper worked out well with my tea towel on top. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take this and we're going to plop it out onto our clean, well-floured surface. So we're going to try to shape this into a ball, and then we're going to put it in our cast iron pot. Right now I have my oven preheating to 450 degrees, and I went ahead and put my cast iron skillet, or my cast iron pot, in the oven while it's preheating, so it can get the pot nice and hot. It's going to help the bottom crisp up nicely as well. So while my oven's preheating, I've got my cast iron pot in there as well. I'm going to, when I get it out of there, I'm going to carefully line it with some parchment paper. It just helps getting the bread out a little bit easier when it's done, so we can put it on a cooling rack. But right now I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of flour. You can use all-purpose flour, whatever flour you use in your recipe. Just flour your surface. See that? Okay. Flour my hands up a little bit. We are going to free this guy from this bowl. Wet and sticky. So just gonna kind of gently fold it into itself a little bit, creating, can't even see, sorry. Just kind of grabbed up the edges and started folding it into itself a little bit. Not necessarily kneading it or anything. You don't need to punch it down, but you're just going to kind of try to shape it into a ball. Do whatever you need to do. Tuck the edges, grab them up, kind of push them down in there. Just shape it up a little bit. Nice and pretty. Okay, you're going to be left with something like this. Not too sticky. If you feel like it's a little sticky, you can add a little bit of flour on top, but your well-floured surface is going to do just fine with getting it to transfer. So I'm going to get my hot pot out of the oven, and then we're going to do the next step. Okay, so this is very hot. It's actually kind of steaming, so just be careful. And now I'm going to get a little bit of parchment paper. And gently, kind of just careful not to burn yourself. Fit that in there. So the bottom's nice and flat, and there's some sides to it, so I could just lift it straight up. And I've got my ball of dough here, so I'm just going to put it in the cast iron pot, and we will be on our way. So just be very careful setting this in here so that you don't burn your hands. Okay, he's in there. Now what you can do next is you can score the top of the bread. Sometimes you see like fancy designs on top of the bread. Sometimes that just helps it rise. There's not so much constriction on top. So I'm just going to make a tiny little slit at the top and help some of that, to help with the rise and the evaporation there. I'm just using a little paring knife. You don't need anything fancy. I think they make like actual little knives for loaf cutting. Just a little slit. All right, I'm going to put the lid on and I'm going to bake this in the oven at 450 for 30 minutes. Okay, check back in 30 minutes. So while we wait for the bread to bake, I just thought of something else that I can put in the basket for Jamie. Come on out to the garden. Okay, so everything is dead for the most part around here, except for some of the plants that I brought into the garden. Hi, baby. So cute. This is Kim's cat. She comes to say hello all the time when I'm outside. So we brought our lavender into the garage during the freeze, and it is still rocking and rolling. So I am going to clip off some fresh lavender and just tie it with some twine and put it in her basket. It'd be a nice touch. Okay, the timer's going off. Let's take it out after the first 30 minutes. Okay, I'm excited to see. You're gonna get the first look with me. Okay, it's looking good. It's looking like bread, which is a good sign. So I wonder if I could, here. So it's, when I opened it, it had steam coming off. It's risen really well. So now I'm gonna pop this back in the oven for another 15 minutes and just let the top get nice and crusty and golden. One thing while we wait for the bread to cook the last 15 minutes, I want to add, you can really dress this bread up. You can add Parmesan cheese or rosemary or roasted garlic, chop up some olives. You can get pretty creative with this bread. It's pretty forgiving. It's just really a good base. So just add that into the dough and mix it in really well and pop it in the oven and see what you get, you know, and you can even top it with some garlic butter on top after. Really, the possibilities are endless with this bread. So I was trying to time it to where, you know, it would be a nice hot loaf whenever I go over to see Jamie. Her plan was originally to come over to Plum Grove, but I think something's going on with her horse. So I'm going to have to make the trip over to Longhorn Lester's to see her today, which is totally fine. So I'll go over there and see her. So hopefully the bread will still be warm when she gets it. But I'm going over there in, I guess, like an hour and a half or so. So I'm going to let it cool on a cooling rack. And yeah, it'll be nice and fresh for her. Oh, and Lester too, of course. Okay, guys. Are you ready? I think I can just put it on out. Oh yeah. Nice and brown. You can kind of see where I made that cut on the top to let the bread expand more. Oh my gosh. I'm kind of upset I didn't make myself one. I wonder if she's going to share with me. Yeah. See the bottom. Oh yeah, nice and crusty. Hot. Let me get a cooling rack and we'll put it on the cooling rack. Kind of feel bad for my kids because they're going to come home, they're going to walk in the door and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, it smells so good. Where's the food? Not for you. Not today. Which they get all the treats all the time. I don't feel bad for them. So there it is, guys. Our no knead, crusty loaf artisan bread that took about 24 hours to make. And I've got lots of different bread recipes that don't take 24 hours. I've got bread recipes that you can do in the same day or even 3 hours. So we'll do some of those too, but because I had the time, and I know that this is a great recipe, I went ahead and let this rise for 24 hours and baked it. So it smells delicious. I hope you make one. Put some good butter on it. Speaking of butter, you can make your own homemade butter, which I'm sure we'll do soon. So that's a really easy recipe as well. But yeah, keep some homemade butter in the fridge with your homemade bread. Does not get any better than that. So stay tuned to see Jamie get her awesome, well, I think it's awesome, gift basket from me. And I'm going to be joining her live tonight over at Longhorn Lester's. So I hope to see you on her channel. And thanks for watching my bread making episode. Have a great day.